everyone, welcome back to the second piece of Villalobos suite for soprano and violin. The second piece is Quero Ser Alegre. So in this series, we are focusing on how to sing the intervals that is difficult in terms of inconsistency of tonality, which means that the tonality, the tonal center keep changing after every 3 notes or so. Because of the constant changes of tonality in one phrase, it becomes a bit difficult for us to gauge what is the next note. It creates effects like there's no pitch, there's nothing you can base on. So what we want to do with the calculation method of the interval is to train our mental agility. That means we want to be able to respond, react swiftly after all these rehearsals, after all this calculation of intervals. Okay, so last week we stopped at bar 23 and we are going to continue learning the rest of the music. Starting from bar 24 to bar 34, this section is actually one of the easy section of the entire piece. The reason is because the tonality is quite stable here. The difficult part is when the violins come in and we have to align with the harmony. And the harmony is a lot of tension. The violinist has his own melody and we have our own melody. And in the very beginning of the rehearsal with your violinist, you might not feel comfortable because there's a lot of tension. As a singer, we innately want to find the harmony and we want to blend in. But that is the main reason that we are out of tune for this music. So we don't want that. We don't want to be in tune. We want to be out of tune. Okay, remember that? Only you are out of tune, you are in tune for this song, because we do not want to look for harmony. We want to look for tension. So just now I mentioned that the tonal center is quite stable for these few bars. We are in the key of G flat major and we only have one sharp, which is C natural in pickup to bar 35. So let's go through the melody here. It is Re, Mi, So, Re, Mi, Fa, So, Re. And the crescendo part. Re, Mi, Fa, So, Si, La, Re. This is a repeated pattern. The original pattern is Re, Mi, So, Re, Mi, Fa, So. And the variation is Re, Mi, Fa. And then we have a chromatic there. Re, Mi, Fa, So, Si, La, Re. Two problems that I encountered earlier was in bar 28 and bar 30. C flat, I went too high up. So I take up the space of the chromatics of the flowing bar. And then for the A flat in bar 30, I was singing too flat. Be brave and go a little bit higher. How I did my adjustment is to actually really feel like we are going to sing until A pitch. You know, if there is a spectrum there, I was actually experimenting to quite an extreme. So that is a suggestion for you. Continue on. The melody is very simple. And when you're singing alone, that is not a problem. It's very simple here. G flat major, G flat is your Do. So 1, 2, 3. Do, so, mi, do, re, mi. And then sharp 4, mi, fi. It is mi, fi, so, a major feeling. Okay, so that is the only accidental we have for this entire section. The difficult part of this section is when you're doing with your ensemble practice, because the violin has its own melody. From pickup to bar 31, 32, 33, that is the part that we can miss out the timing. Reason is, you look at bar 32, the second beat of the violin is actually a quiver upbeat, and the melody in the violin is already intense enough and we'll be very nervous and looking for our own beat. So the sound plus our nervousness, even with very simple melody and simple calculation, that can increase the difficulty of this section. Going on, we are going to talk about bar 36 until bar 42. It is a variation of bar 17 until bar 23. Let me explain to you what is it difficult for this section, the variation section. First is the transition from the previous C to the B. And the second reason is because the accompaniment is different from the previous accompaniment. I tend to become confused firstly, and from there it leads to my insecurity to actually be grounded with my melody. Okay, let's talk about the transition first. Let's look at the previous melody. 1, 2, 3. Re, mi, fi, do, ti, do, re. We just want to get the interval of the two notes, which is the C and B. It is very simple when we are doing alone without the violinist, but when we are pairing with the violin, this is the feedback that I got from my violinist, which is the A from the third beat of bar 35. The A confused me, and I tend to sing something else. The next difficult thing is the accompaniment is different from the previous one. And in the variation, it is. The reason that I'm doing this comparison is because we want to get used to the harmony. Listen to the piano accompaniment and yourself singing is a little different when you are pairing with the violinist, because with the string, you can actually hear the harmony kept going, and it's kind of a distraction. You know, your ear have to open and listen to it, and then you will have to be busy with your own stuff. So it can be a bit distracted. So it can be a bit distracted, and you have to be very grounded. And how you can be grounded is to practice listening to the sound enough and get yourself familiar. So we cannot always have the string playing with us. So my way of coping this difficulty is to play on the piano and listen to it, and also listen to the recording, the reference audio, and also the rehearsal video or rehearsal audio, whatever you recorded with your violinist. So next, it is the extension of this part. The difficult part is in the 12/8 bar. So looking back at the 12/8 bar, it is a bit like going back to the very beginning of our melody in bar 10, because we are in 4/4 and the violin is in 12/8. But the polyrhythm is not so scary, because what I did after I do the calculation at the very beginning of my learning for this piece is that you just need to listen and react to the sound of the violin. What you have to hear is just this one. 1, 2, 3, and then you sing. And you hold your F. That is a place the violinist can express himself. You can see 3 fermatas in his part with glissando, and you have to give him enough time to play with his or her slides, because only when we give enough time we can hear the sliding from notes to notes. One thing I want to highlight is that you have to decide where you want to land for the F, because you can see a grace note D. You want to land with the D or you want to land after the D. So the decision I made is that I will land after he played the I'm sorry. I'll just take that beat of the grace note to breathe in, and I land together with the rest of the notes. So this is how I do. Moving on is another part of my favorite. Actually, the whole song is my favorite. Anyways, it is again a part where without the violin playing the accompaniment, we can easily get our pitch. But when the violin came in, there's a lot of tension and we will need to look for the tension. And if we have not developed the tension ear, we will always want to look for the harmony, which is going to make us be out of tune. My personal relationship with this chunk of music is, why is it my favorite? First of all, is because of the swelling effect. One of the important lessons that 𝗃𝗃𝗀 advocated. Pick up to bar 48, 49. That part is very similar to Shostakovich's Symphony Third Movement. When I first learned it, this is just locking into my memory. But the thing is, when the violin comes in, it does not sound like Shostakovich. So part of the melody is locked into my memory, but the second part is that some new information that I have to develop through this learning. Two things that's difficult here. One is the technique. Just now I already said it's a swelling effect. You know, when I experiment to exaggerate the swelling effects and then hold back my volume, the effect is not as good as you just sing it as it is written. Because you look at the way the melody is written, it's actually a high note to a low note and then go back to a high note and then go back to a low note and so on and so forth. And with this characteristic of the notes, the swelling effect is already naturally there. So we do not need to do another layer. It's going to burden your technique. Like in the language, we do not say, I super very like McDonald. That's how the grammar in Bahasa Malaysia, which is my national language, works. So we don't say terpaling, means super very. We just use one is enough. So same for this music. We do not want to overlap the technique. Secondly, we want to use just intonation. And again, if you want to learn more about just intonation, please go to the YouTube video that I prepared for you. Just intonation is very, very important concept to grasp, to be able to sing the suite for soprano and violin. Let's look starting from the pickup of bar 44. The suggestion here is the F and the G note, you can explore and tune it much more lower than what you naturally hear when you're playing on a piano. You can explore almost like you're going to sing the F into the E. That is how much tuning you can do. Why is it so? It's because of the concept of just intonation and how we sing with strings. And really, you can check out the Just Intonation video series. That is the first trick for this part. The second trick, let's look at the pickup of bar 47, the C to A flat. Now, tune the A flat higher. So I will sing from the C, F, C, A flat. Yeah, this is the Shostakovich. If you sing A flat like the piano, the nuances won't be there. You have to sing a bit sharper. Just make the interval narrower. Somewhere at B, you really have to tune it. It's a very strange feeling when we started doing this type of tuning. continue, we are also going to do the same thing, but this time we have to integrate 𝗶𝗲𝗄 because E flat is in our middle upper register, so we have to feel a sense of difficulty in singing high notes. If you're not feeling difficult, that means we are somewhere below E flat. That is how my body feels. That's how I feel it in my singing mechanism. Same goes to your D flat. We also need to integrate 𝗶𝗲𝗄. Secondly, we have to not hear the D flat too sharp or too flat. And for the F and G wise, same thing. Tune it lower. Then you have a much more obvious interval when you're doing this. When I'm doing my C, I'm actually hearing lower than what I hear on the piano. And from the C to A flat, again, I'm tuning the A flat much more higher. And for the D note, it is in the middle upper register, somewhere there. So I'm also integrating my 𝗶𝗲𝗄 for this note. And following that is the F, G, tune it lower. So when you sing D flat again, use 𝗶𝗲𝗄. So basically, we are using 𝗶𝗲𝗄 and also the just intonation tuning technique. Integrate and pair these two techniques together to sing the whole section here. And then last note is your B. For me, I always want to stick to the violin sound, which is going to make me sound flat. So I tell myself, go higher for your B, especially when you're singing with the violinist. Now, let's talk about how difficult it is to sing with the violinist. The first difficult part is the FG part, because the transition from the D note to the F note in 4/4 bar is difficult. Second difficult part, which is the most difficult part when I first learned this one, is the D flat. I can never find that. I can never find like where can I find the D flat? Even when you're using your solfege skills, there's just no way you can hear the harmony that we usually hear, right? And this is what I do. I played the harmony of the fifth. So from here. And now add in the top melody. I mean, not add in, but play it separately. Just learn the melody of the violin first. You feel it? Very familiar? That's right. It is the melody of our bar 17 to bar 23. So the violin part is playing the harmony as well as playing one of the theme in our vocal melody. And for the vocal part, we are actually singing something else, right? So let's sing the melody and play the violin's melody. I'm going to start from bar 45, pick up to bar 46. So that's after that we can combine the chords and the melody together. Okay, that's how I practice. And next, one of the most difficult place for this music. Okay, how we're going to learn this part? Just now we already learned our melody line. And now let's learn the melody of the violin. Let's look at bar 51. So let's pair them together. The second beat of bar 52, I will take a breath before the G. Reason is, there's a fermata and I want to have some time to enjoy my beat. So what I actually tune is to make sure that I'm aligned with the and then the third part. Finally, something that I can understand for the last 2 notes. The very end of the music, which is our E, my favorite. Two difficult thing here. The first one is when you're listening to the violin, you have to look from the violin part to your E. So what worked for me is actually to remember your last note, which is T, Mi. Actually, it's a So, Do interval. And I've written in many of my posts, I think I really like this part is because during one of my listening session, I committed to listen to the music for 20 times, and halfway during this process, I fell asleep, and until one time, I suddenly hear the beautiful color that's really imprinted in my memory, and I suddenly know how to sing that E part. And every time when I performed it during the basking session or during our rehearsal or during the performance itself, I always remember how to sing that E sound pairing with the beautiful violin harmony. So the transition part is always challenging. There's two ways. One is that you look from your vocal, the previous notes, to look for your E note. And secondly is to sing it from the violin part, the G sharp, and then you look for your E natural. Let's continue into the andantino. What is it so beautiful about? Maybe you can loop the music for 20 times until you fell asleep and see if you can find this beautiful color of the andantino section. And the second part is to learn the line of the violin part. And pair it with the vocal. A bit of tips on how to sing straight note is to create the resonance. How to create? So the resonance that I'm referring is not our mouth cavity or nasal cavity or mask or your diaphragm. No, you just imagine that you are, let's say we have a big space here, empty space, right? When we sing, there's reverb, right? But you want to keep feeding the reverb with a little bit more sound, so that the volume of the reverb can hold there consistently. That is what I mean by resonance. we have finished discussion on how to sing those difficult pitches in Quero Ser Alegre. Let's just wrap up what are the main concepts of learning the difficult pitches of this music. First of all, we have to have the concept of just intonation. Again, please check out the video tutorial in the link below, because only with this just intonation concept, then we are able to further explore how much we can actually tune the same pitch, because we are transitioning from a pair of piano ears into a pair of better violin ears. The second concept is to actually learn the transition. It is one of the challenging things to sing this piece. The reason is because we are constantly changing the tonality from one to the next, and we couldn't base on any notes from the violin or even previous melody. If we are coming from a tonal background, we will need to develop the mental agility to be able to find what is the next note, especially after a rest. So the coping mechanism is that sometimes we need to integrate poser la voix to find how it feels for certain notes at certain heights to pair with the mental agility exercises. And third things is that we have to learn to sing as an ensemble with the violinist, because singing with the violin and singing with the piano is really different. First of all, piano will not hold the notes as long as a violin can do, because as long as you bow, there's a sound there, and the sound can be distracted if you're not familiar with the sound yet. So that is something that we can further develop through learning this piece. Learning the difficult pitches is just one of the sections that I'm sharing with you here. I'm on my way creating an online course on Udemy about how to learn this piece, not just the pitches, but as well as sharing you my entire process when I was first introduced to this piece. What are the challenges when I first look at music? And from that original identity as a singer who sang with piano for her entire life to someone who needs to listen deeper when singing with the violin, because the tuning system are different from the piano, and the violin sounds more resonant when they are using the just intonation. And we have to adapt ourselves and sing with the string as an ensemble. And then from there, I developed my coping mechanism and come up with solutions to learn this piece, including how we learn difficult pitches, how we sing with the ensemble, and also certain technicalities we are applying singing this piece. So I also hope through this video, you can have more realistic expectation of how long it is going to take you to learn this music. Who is suitable to learn this course is people who are already capable for polyrhythms. One of the difficult part is polyrhythms, but I am not mentioning here in this series is because I already do a very deep dive about polyrhythms concept in my Ravel's Asie polyrhythm step-by-step guide. In that video, we are taking Ravel's Asie, which is the first movement of Scheherazade. The polyrhythm there is not so intense as Villa-Lobos, because Villa-Lobos is really utilizing polyrhythms in his music. Until then, I hope you enjoy the entire learning of this piece. It is not a straightforward process. There's a lot of back and forth, and from unaware to become fully aware is like a very high pressure learning period. There is going to be frustrations, and expect that in your learning process. And until then, I will see you again in the next video. Thank you for watching.